Nitro Rad, Halloween special.
What do you do after you make a game and a sequel?
Reboot the series.
They're only 2 games in when they reboot the series. It's a little weird if you ask me, but okay, whatever. When Toyama was first given the new dev kit for PlayStation 3, he and Project Siren experimented with the new hardware, reusing assets and scenarios from Siren 1, just for the sake of testing it out. They felt that the new lighting engine breathed new life into this older material, which led to the decision to remake the first game using their powerful new engine, rather than making something from scratch. What we ended up getting was a reimagining of the first Siren game, the same basic plot retold through a series of different characters with all new gameplay. Toyama stated, "Siren Blood Curse is not a sequel or a standard remake of the other games. Suppose the events of the original Siren were real, and in that case, Siren Blood Curse would be like a movie based on a true story, adapting and dramatizing the original." That is an interesting way of looking at it. This is the game in the series that most people are aware of. Unlike Forbidden Siren 2, it did come out in North America, even if it was download only over here. The game was released episodically. The game's 12 chapters were released on the PlayStation Network. People could buy the episodes in chunks or just purchase the entire game altogether at a slight discount. It's currently up there for $20, making the $15 episode packs completely obsolete. I don't know why you'd buy 4 episodes for $15 when the full game, 12 episodes, is only $20, $5 more. Unlike the first 2 games, I don't actually have a physical copy of this one. It was a lot cheaper to go digital this time around, so whatever. And it never came out physically here anyway, so whatever. I guess it just means I can't really make a joke about yanking the disc out of the console if something scary happens. But here we are, Siren Blood Curse. Kind of a dumb name if you ask me. Blood Curse. Blood Curse. What kind of name is that? In Japan it was called Siren New Translation. You know, it's a new translation of the first game. It's a retelling of it. That also makes it the first game not to be called Forbidden Siren outside of North America, too. I gotta take the time to appreciate the menus, though. They are beautiful looking. Almost looks like film reel footage or something like that. I really like how they play with the depth of field on the kanji in the lower right corner. I have to say, I've never seen a game over screen this pretty before. When you start the game, you can immediately choose to start from any episode. Weird, but okay, let's start with episode 1. It starts off with this Blair Witch-looking found-footage-style intro. Live action, too. An American camera crew finds themselves in a cursed Japanese village when trying to do a news story or something like that. They stumble across a cult sacrificing a young girl when some random American exchange student runs out of the woods to save her. In just this one scene, you've pretty much seen every playable character in the game, but let's start with Howard for now. He essentially plays the role of Kiyoya Suda, the 18-year-old college kid that stumbles upon the ritual trying to save Miyako. This time it's an American exchange student named Howard Wright. But unlike Kiyoya, who is calm, cool, and collective, he's a punk-ass kid who drops the F-bomb every 2 damn seconds.
Fuck!
I'm honestly not really a fan of him. I found Kiyoya to be a much more likable character. Howard's just a dumbass American teenager that somehow speaks Japanese. That is one thing I do really like about this game, though. The first 2 games had a couple of issues regarding the language barrier, but incorporating both Japanese and American characters created a scenario where both languages could be used effectively. The American characters will speak in English, while the Japanese characters will often speak in Japanese but with English subtitles. Some of them will try their hand at English when speaking to an American character, but of course having a thick accent as a result.
I'd rather have people think I'm crazy than therefore being pride.
This makes a lot more sense than everyone speaking in English with heavy accents in Forbidden Siren 2.
In the movies, those are the guys that stay alive, right?
I'm not like you soldier boys.
You
And on the flip side, some of the English characters will try their hand at Japanese, and of course having heavy American accents.
The woman got stabbed! Tasukete! Hito ga shinda!
I gotta say, the way they handled the language in this game is way better than the first 2 games.
人間だと思って助けたら怪物だったなんて全く笑
Do I look like a monster?
Again, my apologies. This is a matter of life and death. After all.
I like how he switches to speaking English after Sam interrupts him, making him realize that he probably doesn't understand what he's saying in Japanese. The events of Siren 1 then follow suit, with the police officer firing at Howard. The first mission is even exactly the same: escape the police officer. The controls and interface are widely similar in structure, but with a couple of major differences. It's still RE4 style tank controls, but the turning and movement is much sharper and more responsive. The speedy crouch walking from Forbidden Siren 2 is back, along with the ability to play the game entirely in first person, which, again, comes very much in handy when wanting a closer look at things. The flashlight is now mapped to the D-pad instead of a face button. I'm not really too big on that. I find having to use your left thumb instead of your right thumb to toggle the flashlight, it's a little more awkward because it means you have to either stop moving or you have to use your index finger, which nobody wants to do this. The D-pad essentially replaces that little menu that would pop up when pressing triangle. Actions like shouting, telling your partner to stay or hide, and placing down bear traps are all now mapped to the D-pad. It makes them a lot quicker to access, streamlining things quite a bit. I do like this, with the exception of the flashlight also being mapped to it.
Yo!
Yo, seriously? That's what I do when I want to distract a monster.
Yo!
Absolutely. The monsters are all back to the Siren 1 days. No Yamibito this time, unfortunately, just back to the classic generic zombie people with bloody faces, the Shibito. The Spider Shibito also return, and to its merit, they do look a lot freakier than they did before, along with the Fly Shibito, which aren't as annoying to deal with either because they're not always armed with a gun. But like Siren 1, the monster designs all fall short of anything truly terrifying. I guess these guys are kinda scary. They look like they're hopped up on joy or something, but it's a tad disappointing to see them only rely on the tamer designs from Siren 1 instead of the crazy monsters they had in Forbidden Siren 2. It's also hard to find the game scary with how easy it is to defeat enemies. You may as well become invincible the moment you pick up a weapon. Combat is no longer about carefully timing your attacks and keeping distance. You now just go up and mash the square button. You'll destroy them in seconds. And the moment you lay your hands on a gun, oh man. Pop, pop, watch the Shibito drop. You're unstoppable. The game even makes sure that you have way more ammo than you need, so lock and load, my friend, because you ain't dying anytime soon. The way they ragdoll is funny. The levels are all straight out of Siren 1. Some of them are a little bit different, but most of the maps are pretty one-for-one with, maybe an obstacle or two added or moved around. Seeing these old areas with the new graphics is pretty cool. For an early PS3 title, the graphics are pretty dang good. It definitely has that first-party Sony polish with the clean textures and models. Unfortunately, this also means they decided against using their old facial capture technology, removing that uncanny valley vibe. They now just feel like video game characters instead of something dancing uncomfortably close to the border between fake and real looking. But the lighting engine is definitely where the game shines most. The air just feels thick and full, whether it's full of fog or humidity. The lighting really gives it that feeling of depth that only became really commonplace in video games within the past couple of years. They really knew what they were doing with the choice of colors too. I mean, just look at the sunset. The little filters that dance on the screen look super pretty too. Some lens flare looking stuff. This shows up whenever an enemy's nearby, letting you know when you gotta be careful. Turning the flashlight off isn't really something you're gonna do that much in this game, because I find the Shibito don't really notice it that much anymore, which is a pretty damn good thing because this game is way too dark. Without that light on, you cannot see anything. While the high contrast looks nice, it really isn't that practical gameplay-wise. It makes navigation downright difficult at times, and not in a good way. Not in a way that makes me intimidated by the unknown ahead, but in a frustrating way where I can't find that goddamn doorknob because I can't see. Even turning the brightness up on my TV didn't help at all. The high contrast means anything dark is a hard and solid black. Turning the brightness up on that ain't gonna do a thing. Obviously enough, enough, sightjacking once again returns. I mean, it wouldn't be a Siren game without sightjacking after all, but here it is very different. You'll no longer rotate the stick like you're tuning a radio, but instead you're given a reticle that you can aim around the map. You're like you're aiming a gun or something. Aiming at somebody and the game will give you a split screen view, one side showing you and the other being their first person perspective. It is so much harder to use. Having to aim all around the map instead of simply pointing the stick in one direction requires a level of accuracy that you're not gonna have just when guessing where the enemies are. Alternately, you can use the shoulder buttons to toggle between sights, but I still find even that a little awkward because whenever you want to sightjack somebody, you're gonna have to mash through the R and L buttons until you land in the sight you want. You can no longer map the different Shibito to the face buttons, meaning you'll have to cycle through every time you want to find that guy you're trying to keep tabs on. But easily the biggest offense here is the drastic dip in performance. The frame rate takes a nosedive whenever you enter sightjacking mode. The use of motion blurring almost makes me feel like it was done on purpose, I guess, but you know, like if you're focusing on sightjacking so you can't focus entirely on your own self. You know, you're multitasking, you're doing two things at once, so both sides get a little wonky. But even if it was done on purpose, with that being the explanation, it doesn't excuse how you can no longer go full screen in sightjacking mode. It's this awkward split screen or nothing at all. You don't really get that same feeling of uncertainty when it's split screen. I mean, you can easily keep tabs on yourself while simultaneously looking through the eyes of someone else. You don't really get that same feeling of anxiety of being unaware of your own surroundings unless you see yourself through somebody else's eyes. That sort of exclusivity created a much more powerful feeling, I felt, and it just isn't there anymore. And besides, on a practical level, it just doesn't work as well. I mean, I'd much rather a well-performing full-screen sightjack than a really poorly performing split-screen.
Funky skunk!
Brady, what are you doing?
Funky skunk!
The game is hardly even playable in sightjacking mode now. It is a total mess. I can't believe they messed it up this badly. The game's defining feature is handled so poorly that it becomes a chore rather than something innovative and interesting. The only thing they added to the gameplay that I actually really like is the ability to hold doors shut. If a Shibito is after you, you can now close the door and brace it closed. So long as you're holding it, they won't be able to get in. This can discourage them from taking the specific route into the room, changing their course of navigation, opening new opportunities to get away or sneak by. It's a very minor addition, but it's as effective as it is simple, and I found myself getting a lot of fair use out of it. The characters also no longer have unique abilities like they did in Forbidden Siren 2. Playing as different characters is purely there for the sake of the story. We've got a fairly smaller cast this time around, with only 7 playable characters this time. The game focuses mostly on Howard, but there's also Sam, one of the film crew members, his ex-wife Melissa, their daughter Bella, and the camera guy Sol. Additionally, there's also Amana, I don't know how to say it. You play as her for like one mission. And then there's the only good character, Seigo Saiga. Yeah, you heard me, only good character, because I really don't like the cast this time around. They argue all the time, it's so annoying.
God, get rid of them already!
Hey! Cut it out!
Hey!
These are the only
What's wrong
glasses
with you
that
two?
I've got!
We just saw a goddamn murder and you're bickering over stupid shit!
I don't feel connected to any of these people, and quite frankly, I couldn't care less if they live or not. It's like the cast of a bad horror movie. You've got the divorced couple, you know, the Harry Mason looking ass and the rude wife, their little girl who whines all the time, and of course the black guy who dies first. I'm not joking, the black guy actually dies first. With the condensed cast, characters will now fill the shoes of multiple characters from Siren 1. For example, Melissa is a lot like Naoko, the unpleasant TV host, but at the same time, she enters a lot of the same scenarios that Reiko Takato entered. You know, how she was caring for and looking after Harumi, who is now represented by Bella.
Bella, hurry, get in!
Bella also shares some scenarios and traits of Tomoko. Sego is also like Akira, the native hunter who hunts down the Shibito with his rifle, but at the same time he experiments on the Shibito as a mad scientist just like Shiro. The only character that's really one for one is Howard, with Kyoya. He's got the most consistent role throughout the game, guiding the blind Miyako to safety. Or wait, she's not actually blind this time. Okay, that's nice, I guess. It certainly makes escorting her a lot easier, but in doing that, they're tossing out any potential that could have worked with having a blind character. Shu in Siren 2 wonderfully demonstrated how a blind character could work very well, and it's disappointing to have them completely toss that idea out in this game. I'm not really a fan of how they treated Miyako as a character this time around. In the first game, she was blind, but despite that, she was very helpful. She aided Kyoya just as much as Kyoya aided her, an eye for an eye, in a much different kind of way. But she's so useless in this game. Take this scene for example. Miyako's brother comes to bring her back to be sacrificed. You know what she does? She kicks his damn ass, dude. But look at that same scene in Blood Curse. Come on, dude, that's just weak. Weak. That is how I describe the whole plot, to be completely honest. It doesn't really feel nearly as fleshed out or clever as it did in Siren 1. There's a lot of stuff you can just tell is there for the sake of being there. Like the nurse Shibito, only there and in your face to be like, oh, you like Silent Hill's nurses? Oh, we got a nurse too. Check it out, we got a nurse. She's no longer Mina, the character that actually correlates directly to the story and characters. She is now nameless nurse, here to be spooky and isn't really involved with the plot and doesn't actually have any reason to be here. The game's not even non-linear anymore. The Link Navigator is totally absent from the game in favor of a straightforward episode-by-episode structure. I really feel like they made Blood Curse way too linear, and I don't just mean in terms of plot or overall game structure, but in the general level design too. The game is riddled with invisible walls surrounding areas that the game just doesn't want you to go. If you're the kind of person that loves to explore around, well then, tough shit. Every time you beat an episode, it does that whole next time on Siren thing, like it thinks it's a TV show or something. And every time you start an episode, it does a brief recap? It's dumb. It's really dumb. It didn't need to do that. You're not a TV show, dude, you're a video game. You'll no longer have to do those secondary missions either, meaning there's also no prerequisites in any stages you'll have to meet. It is watered down, and I guess as a result, it is a much more accessible game. There isn't much of a learning curve here. It plays things relatively safely, taking out anything that might have been remotely confusing or difficult to understand. And I couldn't help but to feel that the scare factor was toned down dramatically. I don't know, the game might look a lot prettier, but the atmosphere definitely isn't there. Neither is the sound design, or the gameplay, or the monster design, or it's just not that scary a game. And that's a damn shame, because I just felt the first two games understood horror, fairly well, and this one just doesn't Okay, I'm not gonna lie. That was actually pretty good. That was a pretty damn good scare. It didn't have to jump out or scream or anything. It was just there. That was good. And the big head thing too, that, man, that really got, that, my guard was totally down. That really got me. But unfortunately, that is the only good scare in the whole game. Maybe it's because I just feel like I've done all this before, and yeah, I know that's expected from a remake of a game, but a remake should introduce things that are new and exciting, breathing new life into the game. But instead, all Siren Blood Curse manages to be is a stripped down, much less impressive version of the first game. It looks pretty though, so I guess there's that. I think the best way I can really put this is, it's baby's first Siren. It's not an awful game, it's definitely not terrible by any means, and I think newcomers will definitely have an easier time getting into it with the simpler gameplay. It's a lot easier to understand than the first two games, but I don't know, something just wasn't there. It didn't click with me nearly as much as the first two games. I guess if you feel that you really got your Siren fix from the first two games, and you really dug what those two had going for it, then I wouldn't really bother with this one. unless I guess you're really curious and seeing a more modern take on Siren. I mean, it was really cool to see everything in HD. It is a very pretty game. Again, it does have that first-party polish to it. But it's so much weaker in a lot of ways. I mean, the side jacking is total garbage now, and anything that was intuitive about the gameplay is completely gone here. If you really had to take it from me, I'd say stick with the original. You will need a walkthrough, but it's a much more interesting experience than this. In all brutal honesty, I really don't think SIREN Blood Curse manages to be much more than just another horror game with maybe one or two unique mechanics. And that is it for the Siren series. After this game, Toyama went on to create the Gravity Rush games, a nice change of pace for the studio, but I would love to see them go back and make a fourth Siren game. I think there's still a lot of potential that could be explored on next-gen hardware, PlayStation 4. Again, Kojima is currently with Sony too, so get them boys together, they can make something amazing. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed watching the Siren Marathon. I've been wanting to check out these games for a long time now, and I'm really glad I finally got to see what they were all about. So I guess in conclusion, Siren 1 is good, with a walkthrough. Siren 2 is great. Siren Blood Curse, it's okay, I guess. I mean, I definitely liked it a lot more than Homecoming, I can say that much for sure. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and here's wishing you guys all a radical Halloween. Take care.
Okay.